Okay, so first off, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's great to see such a turnout here. My name is Stephen Tupper. I'm a technical services planner with the Cape Cod Commission. Before we get started, I just want to let you know there was a sign-in. If anyone missed it, we're going to be passing it around right now, and there's also some agendas with a list of items, so we'll make sure we get you one of those if you missed it on the way in. I also like to point out the exits in case there is an emergency or in case you have to get to a St. Patrick's Day party. Exits on both sides there. And in case you're coming from a St. Patrick's Day party, we are here for the Route 28 corridor study. Just want to make sure you're in the right place here. Okay, so with that, we'll get started. This is the first public meeting for this project. This is the kickoff. It's an opportunity for us to talk to the community. We are certainly experts in our field, but you're experts in this area of the roadway. So we really hope to leverage this session to really understand your concerns or where you think there are areas that could be improved in this corridor. So here's the agenda of what we're going to go over tonight. So I'll start with some brief introductions for some of the Cape Cod Commission and some of the town of Barnstable staff that we have here tonight. We'll go briefly through the project purpose as well as the existing conditions, and then really the heart of this meeting is going to be the visioning exercise. We're going to get you up, drawing on maps. We want to get your input on this process. You're really going to drive the process, so that's going to be the focus of tonight's meeting. And then we'll wrap up very quickly at the end just to give you an idea what's coming up next, how you can stay involved, and how you can be involved throughout the process of this project. So first, some of the key members here. Again, my name's Stephen Tupper. I'm the project manager for this project with the Cape Cod Commission. We also have a number of other commission staff here as well. They're floating around the room. Hopefully you'll get a chance to meet them all when we start drawing on these maps. And also the town of Barnstable is a great partner in this project. We have a number of town staff here as well. Joanne Miller-Buntage, the director of the Growth Management Department, heads up the town staff on this project, but there's a number of people from the town here as well, and we'll certainly mill about, and you'll get to meet them as we move into the visioning exercise. A little slow. So why are we here? So first, a little bit of background about the project. This was identified as a priority corridor to investigate by the state. So this section of Route 28 is a state-owned roadway, and of course the state owns a lot of roadways throughout the state, so they call on regional planning agencies like the Cape Cod Commission to help them do studies of these sections of roadway. So this is a state-owned roadway, but the Cape Cod Commission, along with their partner, the town of Barnstable, will be conducting this study here. And this is really a logical extension of some of the other work that's been done recently in the area. So a recent study a little further west would be the Hyannis Access Study, shown on purple on the graphic here. So that focused on some of the real congested areas in the heart of Hyannis, looking at the Hyannis Rotary down to the Route 28 I&O Road and Yarmouth Road intersection there. That was a large initiative that the Commission put forward. One of those intersections, the Route 28 Yarmouth Road intersection, is actually in line for funding now, so hopefully we'll be able to see some real improvements coming out of that study. Moving a little further west down Route 28, the Bierce's Way at Route 28 intersection project is a project being taken up by Mass DOT. It's a construction project scheduled to begin sometime next year, so you'll see improvements on the intersection of Bierce's Way and Route 28, and also extend east over to the Cape Cod Mall entrance and try to address some of the pedestrian and bicycle deficiencies in that area, and will be a real nice improvement for people being able to get around in that area. So then our project extends beyond that from the west, starting at Bierce's Way, all the way down to Old Stage Road. And we'll go over some of the intersections along the corridor in a little while. But that's the overview of really where this came from.
Can I just
Sure.
ask a question?
Sure.
So in other words, the state reaches out to bodies like the Cape Cod Commission because they're not equipped to do the kind of planning that you can. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say they're not equipped. They certainly have the ability to do these studies, but just the volume of studies, it's nice to have a partner like the Cape Cod Commission. We're familiar with the unique issues here on Cape Cod, and we have very good working relationships for all the towns. So we work through them through a contract, so we're really doing this planning study for them, for their roadway. So that's the relationship between those two bodies. Thank you for the question. So what are we trying to do on this roadway? I apologize, this comes out a little light on the screen here, but I will very clearly go through them. So there's three main goals of this project. The first one is to improve safety. As you're all aware driving through this area, there's a number of intersections with some hazards. Taking a look at some crash records, there are some intersections where really we could see some improvement. So we hope to focus in on some of these high crash areas and try to make some improvements in terms of safety. The second is reducing congestion. As you know, Hyannis is a real economic center for this area. There's a lot of drivers in terms of jobs, in terms of retail. There's also It's a transit hub for the Regional Transit Authority. You've got the ferries, you've got the airport, and also the hospital, the Cape Cod Hospital, the largest hospital in the area. So when there's a congested area that's causing distress for people trying to get in, it really is a drag on all of those uses. So improving congestion, reducing congestion would really be another goal of the study. And then finally, accommodating all users. So what that means is we're not just focusing on vehicles. We want to focus on the pedestrians on the roadway, the cyclists, the transit users, everyone who's using this roadway. We just want to make sure that it safely and efficiently accommodates all of those users along this corridor. So very briefly on the timeline. So this is a one-year planning effort. We actually started traffic counts all the way back last summer, but the planning started in earnest in this winter. Today is the first public meeting in March, and the effort will continue through the end of September. So we'll go through some of these milestones later on, but it is a significant planning effort that will span over the spring, summer, and into the fall. So very quickly, I'd like to go over some of the existing conditions on the site. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this, but I want to highlight a few points along the way to make sure that you're thinking about all the possible issues and opportunities in this area as we move forward to the visioning exercise. So again, the study area extends on the western end from Old Stage Road, continuing on through the Centerville shopping area, over up to Finney's Lane, over to the split down to West Main Street, through Strawberry Hill. Long stretch along there, you've got the school, you've got some assisted living facilities, over to Pitcher's Way, and finally terminating at Bierce's Way. So we'll go over some of the traffic data and the other data that we've collected so far in this study, and hopefully this will be able to inform us throughout the design process and potential alternatives along this corridor. So first is the traffic count data. As I said before, we did do an extensive data collection last summer to try to hit some of the peak traffic issues. Of course, we recognize that some other traffic issues happen throughout the year, so we're planning some additional counts in the spring to particularly capture the trips associated with the school, which happen in very short bursts, but they can be intense demands on the traffic system, so we want to make sure we capture those impacts. Next is crash data. The town of Barnstable and the police department here in Barnstable has been very cooperative in sharing the crash data that we have. So we've taken a preliminary look at that data, but we'll really drive into it and see what are the safety issues resulting in these crashes to make sure we can try to address some of those concerns. And finally, we've conducted some site visits. We'll do some more once it gets a little warmer out there and there's not so much snow out there. But I'll share some of the photographs that we thought were of interest along the corridor there. So first, traffic volume. I don't think it's news to anyone in this room. There's a lot of traffic on Route 28. It varies by time of year. Certainly there's more traffic in the summer, but it's really a congestion issue throughout the year. So there's a varying traffic volumes along that corridor. And then all of the feeder roads coming onto Route 28 have different levels of traffic volume. So some of the biggest being Bierce's Way, of course, Old Stage Road. But there's a lot of different roads along this corridor that really impact the operations. So traffic data, yes?
The average annual daily traffic volume for 28 along the stretch.
For 28 along that stretch. I can give you a specific number after this meeting. We have right here in terms of we have it right now in terms of vehicles per hour, but I can go over that after in terms of the fluctuation. Yeah. Okay. So certainly I can discuss that a little further with you after. Moving on to the crash data, we've taken a preliminary look at some of the crashes along the corridor. The police department is great, and they have a nice big stack of papers on my desk, so I'm going through them right now. Over 200 crashes along this 2.5-mile corridor. Some of the highlighted areas are some of the high crash locations that we've seen. Certainly, you probably expect a lot of the signalized intersections. There's a lot of volume going through, so that's tough to process. We also see a lot of crashes related around the commercial area. Just east of Old Stage Road, there's a lot of curb cuts, a lot of ways that people are crossing. It's very confusing along that 4-lane section, so certainly a number of crashes there. And then the Lincoln Road intersection, not signalized, but there's a heavy traffic volume coming out of Lincoln Road, so we certainly want to address some of the crashes we're seeing at that location. And then finally, I'd like to go over some of the pictures we took along the site just to highlight a couple of things we saw. I'm sure you'll bring up many other interesting things along our conversation. So I'll bring you through the corridor west to east. Of course, it is St. Patrick's Day, so we had to start with a picture of the nice decorations on the corner of 28 and Old Stage Road. Seems to change every holiday, so that's nice to see. But a little more detail on the intersection there at Old Stage Road. Of course, we've got the gas station on the corner. There's a signal there. Some pedestrian accommodations, certainly some things we can look at. You can see the crosswalk there. Moving towards the east, we have that 4-lane section in front of all the commercial development. 4-lane, no median in between. Certainly, when we were out there, we saw a lot of interesting maneuvers that people were making, so certainly will warrant some further consideration in that area. One thing I wanted to highlight, it was very cold with the day we were out there, and there was still a good number of pedestrians out there, so that they need to have good accommodations. We certainly saw them out there and want to make sure they're accommodated in a safe manner. Moving a little forward, a little further along the corridor, this is the Finney's Lane intersection. A lot of lanes at this intersection. Got a liquor store on the corner there. Oops. Skip past that. Moving a little further east along the corridor is the intersection with West Main Street. Splits off into the Hyannis Center area. A lot of movement there. Further down is the intersection with Strawberry Hill Road. This is the one with the Greek church on one corner, CVS on the other corner. And this is actually a location that Mass DOT, the state, is looking at as well. So they're looking at doing some improvements to the signal timing there and possibly some upgrades for the equipment as well. Certainly, whatever we see during this study could help inform that project as well. So if there's anything you see at this intersection, it's a great time to bring up the concerns to make sure the state hears those as they move forward with that project. Further along, there's a stretch. You will note the school crossing sign there. There's a good volume of students coming and leaving the school, so I want to make sure we keep that into consideration, and also some assisted living facilities along that stretch of roadway. This is coming up from Lincoln Road. Again, for those who aren't as familiar, you may be surprised with the amount of vehicles that come out of this roadway. It's a very common cut-through between 28 and West Main Street, so we see a lot of people trying to get out of this road anyway, so certainly something to keep in mind. Moving a little further east, we're approaching the Pitcher's Way intersection. A little tough to see on the right-hand side here because of the snow, but there is the multi-use path along the roadway there. Some places it's right next to the roadway, others it winds down. Certainly something to look at as we move forward. And then terminating at the Bierce's Way intersection. As I said, the state, it does have a construction project coming up very shortly on this intersection, so that should take care of a lot of the issues at this location, but certainly want to make sure it connects well with our corridor. As you can see in this picture here, right now there are people walking up to the Bierce's Way intersection on nothing, really, so you can see the footprints there, so certainly a desire line, so we want to make sure we can safely accommodate that. So now we can move into the fun part, as I say, of this exercise. So this is where you guys get to come in and give us your ideas. So we will take this in 2 steps. So first, as I'm sure most of you noticed, there are some large-scale maps printed out on here. So the corridor will be broken up into 3 segments. 2.5-mile corridor is pretty long to think about all in one stretch. So we broke it up into 3 segments. The first going from Old Stage Road up to Finney's Lane. This is really that commercial area with a 4-lane section. Next break goes from Finney's Lane up to Old Strawberry Hill Road, and then the final section from Old Strawberry Hill Road to Bierce's Way. So I don't know if any of you noticed on the agendas that you picked up when you came in, but there was a small red letter next to the map exercise. So that had a number either 1, 2, or 3. So that's the map segment that you'll start at. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this group up into 3, put you each at a map, and you'll work at that section. We'll work for a little while, and then we'll rotate. So everyone will get a chance to comment on all 3 sections of the corridor. Just want to break it up so we can have some workable groups. In each group, we'll also have a representative of the commission staff and the town staff, so they can help facilitate discussion, and if you have any questions along the way, certainly help out with that. So I bet you're wondering what we're going to do with those maps. So we have a number of objectives when you're looking at this map. So first of all, we'd like you to point out anything that you like. I know that's usually not the first thing you think about when you come into a meeting like this, but we really do want to hear what are the good things about this corridor. If there is a park that you like to go to, even if there's a coffee shop that you like to visit, we want to make sure we understand that. I want to make sure there's ways to get to it. So anything you like about the area, be sure to note on those sheets. What are the issues? Never have a problem finding these, so people will note that they don't like the signal timing here, that there's a gap in the sidewalk here. Anything that you might think of, please write it down, and we'll bring it into the process and make sure it's considered as we go forward. What would you like to see changed? So this is where you get to play as a traffic engineer. If you think that something should be improved in this area, put down some ideas. We know you're not all traffic engineers, so you don't have to know the answer. It doesn't have to be reasonable. What would you like to see in that area? We'll work on the feasibility side of it later. We really just want to see what ideas are out there. What would the community like to see in those areas? So all ideas are welcomed. Certainly open it up. After I say that, I tell you that not all ideas are welcome. So we want to make sure that you focus on the roadway, the sidewalks, and the paths. I don't want to hear that your neighbor has a broken down ford in his driveway that needs to be moved. That probably won't help this process. But anything that has to do with the roadway or around the roadway is certainly welcome in this area. So make sure you write down anything that comes to mind in this area. Also of note, I thank you for signing up on the sign-up sheet, but on each of the maps there's also a sign-up. So if you have particular interest in one of these corridors, maybe you have a house that's on that corridor and you're really interested in what's happening there, or you frequent a business on a corridor, if you want to sign up your name there, we'll make sure that you get involved, particularly in that corridor as we move forward with planning efforts. So it's a great way to stay involved with the specific area that you're interested in at this project. So at this time, if everyone has an idea of the corridor they're on, it's noted on the map. If not, just go to one of the three. I won't really know where you went. Just try to balance it a little bit. We'll bring some staff to each meeting. So what I'll do is I'll give you each a little bit of time to go on these maps, sketch out whatever you want, and then I'll come up here and announce to move to the next table. So the segments go from farthest away, segment 1, segment 2, and segment 3 is closest to the projector here. So when I tell you to move, if you're on 1, you'll go to 2. If you're on 2, you'll go to 3. I think you can figure out how that goes. So we'll move the process along that way. If anyone's confused, let me know. Let someone else know. We'll get you in the right place. But we'll give you a little bit of time, whatever it takes for you guys to get your ideas down, then we'll cycle through. Once we're done with this map exercise, I'd like to bring back the group for a brief time just to get an idea of what the overall comments were from the group. And then I promise after that we'll let you go. So with that, we can move into some of the map exercises and look forward to hearing some of your input on this. Thank you.
signal that they're working on, or is it, are they going to construct?
They'll construct where they need to. So they're approving the whole company. They're going to close some of the openings around the fence. At least it's significant improvements.
No, that's land taking here. Then land taking here, and land taking here.
I don't know if they're staying within the right of way. I'm not sure.
Who takes land when the state does a project like that?
The state.
The state does? They have the right of way?
Yes.
Does the town of Barnstable have to agree to it?
There's certainly a party throughout the process.
Yeah.
That's a nice straight road.
This is right through it, right? So, that's a lot of deals, so you always think, I wouldn't want to touch that.
All over the place.
Yes.
This is the town barn, and we can do anything we want there.
So that's great. I'm sure we can find out. Is that a positive or a negative?
Maybe we shouldn't write it.
Yes. Let's say high vehicle speeds.
I can guarantee you. You didn't do any speeding. No.
You can wait. You'll be going over to that one. We'll get you some. We'll make sure if your name's somewhere, we'll make sure you get your contact.
This is for you too. I don't know.
If you're one quarter that you're specifically interested in, you can sign on that. If not, because in the follow-up meeting, we'll focus in on one quarter at a time, or one site at a time. So we can look more specific.
You have the,
Yeah, we do have the zoning map. Not sure. Trying to remember if this is. I think there's.
what we were trying to do is board and
That was a great point. I got to move it along now. Okay, I think we're going to shift over to the next map. So if you want to move up to the next map, that would be great. The staff can stay where you are.
just a width of the lot.
All the way to the end. Last map.
Well, what used to be the nursing home?
Spread them up next to the lights, because a lot of people.
always on table one?
No, because everyone just
They have
stayed.
abandoned.
So it's kind of like, oh, okay, no worries.
It's fine. It's fine.
You got everyone that hears this away trying to make it. You got a lot of turns in here, and they don't have turns in here. No turns. There is a turn lane, but you don't have a correct. So in other words, there's no dedicated like signal.
deal with temporary here, not in the public ways. It's impractical.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it's a lot of cost.
Right.
And actually a liability.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be coming through town this time, between West Main and up on here. No, nothing's going to stop. Same kind of.
Sudbury has several on Sudbury and take up Lincoln Road and lay it down. The one you don't plow.
Okay, I hate to break up these conversations, but let's move to the last map so I can get you out of here tonight. Thank you. Okay, if we could take our seats again, please. We're just going to come together as a group and try to get a consensus of some of the big ideas we've talked about during the session. Thank you. Okay, so now as a group, I'd like to just go through these couple of points here that we talked about and get an idea of some of the big picture ideas for this corridor. So we'll start by talking about things that you like about this corridor. So I'm going to have a microphone here. I'll have Gary come around and pass you the microphone if you have something to say. But just think about either things you brought up or things you heard someone else talk about in the section. And what do you really like about this corridor? Anyone want to start off? Someone must like something about this corridor. Okay, services along that way. Anything in particular? Any particular services? Just having convenience?
Yeah.
Excellent. So there's a lot of conveniences along this area. Any other?
The road is pretty. I mean, there's a lot of vegetation. It's actually a nice area.
Okay, so it's a pretty area, nice along this roadway for most of it. That's a great point.
Although I think there are many comments on improvements, the bike pathway is certainly a plus.
Certainly.
Huge improvement, but it's there and it's helped with beauty. I see riders on the lawn, kids from school, so that's a plus, even though it needs some help.
Agreed. So having the bike path as an amenity that's not available in a lot of areas is a real perk to this area. Thank you.
I was going to say the trees and the bike path, so.
Excellent. Trees and the bike path. I heard that a lot. The people like
Also
that
the
there's
service-
trees on the sides of the road. They love that the bike path's there, even though there's some issues with it. It's a good amenity.
To get, I mean, because we have the bike path and we have a sidewalk that at least that comes down from Old Stage and comes up from the village, you do you do have the ability to get to the services without being in your car if you want to.
Excellent. Thank you.
We've actually got on the sidewalk part, the private businesses are sharing their land with the public, so that's good.
Excellent. Bring it over there. Yes.
I like the fact that we've got mixed use along there. The churches add to it, the senior centers, the schools, the shopping centers. It's not, in other communities, this type of development has one long strip of small malls and strips. We've got a real usage mix, and I named again the church, the post office, the small shops, the services, the schools, some apartments. So I think that mix is a good thing.
Excellent. Thank you. Do I hear someone over here? One over here, Gary. We'll get to you next.
In 1937, this was put in as known as the Hyannis bypass, which is far from a bypass right now, but it is very convenient for all the shops that are there, and it is a bypass to get into Hyannis, because between West Main Street and Route 28, those are two most traveled roads, and generate a lot of traffic. So if you can improve that traffic and the safetiness of it, it's nice at night with the speeds going, but during the daytime it's much too fast. So, but I do like the convenience of everything that's there. And like I said, it was a bypass at one time, but it's not really a bypass any longer.
Okay. Thank you. Gary, I think we had a comment over here.
Maybe I missed somebody else already saying it, but with very few exceptions, probably Dunkin' Donuts, it's pretty much franchise free too. It's local businesses with their own character, which makes Centerville special.
And any other likes of this area? Any other comments on this section? think Joanne's compiled a pretty nice list there, so thank you for talking about things you like about this corridor. I'm sure we'll have plenty more comments on this next session. What are some of the big issues you see along this corridor that were discussed in your sessions?
Left-hand turn.
So we got speed, traffic speed, left-hand turns. Anyone else?
Light signal.
So anything particular about those signals?
They're generally all are terrible, except for the one on West Main and 28. And they're not coordinated at the time.
Excellent. Okay, signal issues in general, coordination, timing.
The best one, it really reacts to the traffic.
Mhm.
When West Main turns out to 28. That is absolutely the best one in Cape Cod. I'm sorry. That's absolutely the best one in Cape Cod.
Excellent.
You know, so I think that if you coordinate that, and the other thing that I would point out would be double left turns off of Old Stage Road. That's a very difficult to take. Everybody wants to go left,
Mhm.
and that's a main road to getting on and off Cape Cod in many ways. So, in Florida, again, I was there for a week ago, and I really enjoyed being able to take 2-lane left turn.
So excellent. Sounds like issues with the left turn, and we'll add that idea of a two-way left turn to our next topic for the change things. Thank you. Other issues?
We also talked about painted turning arrows, for lanes might be helpful.
Very good. Any other issues?
I didn't really have anything to say. I just wanted to see him walk around. I think there's confusion in the number of lanes because it goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane. Whether you're on a side street, you don't know which lane to be in, right or left. So I think we need to do a better job of helping people know which lane to be in and how fast they should be going.
Excellent. Thank you. In the back, Gary?
Yeah, we talked a lot about pedestrian crossings, especially around the schools. And there's a lot of neighborhoods on the north side, and the schools are on the south side. So you've got a lot of kids who cross. The other thing is a sidewalk on the north side would be good, too. I live on the north side, and there are people walking by my house every day. And part of it is that if you wanted to use the bike path to walk, you have to climb over a guardrail in a lot of places. And, it'd be nice to have crosswalks where it was convenient to get to the bike path, but also a potential sidewalk.
Thank you. All the way over there. Gary's a new guy in the office, so he gets this job running the mic around all the way in the corner.
We're not just talking about the part down towards Centerville, right? We're the whole corridor, right?
Whole corridor.
Okay. So I'd just like to reiterate what that gentleman said about pedestrian crosswalks, particularly up closer to where it becomes a little bit more industrial or closer to the mall, I guess, because there's been 2 deaths right there and then 1 further down. And I think that looking at where that pedestrian traffic is either going or coming from, it would be the mall. So on that note, just to reiterate that the parallel bike path or sidewalk going back down at least as far as to Lincoln and maybe even further on, all the way down. I mean, ideally, it could go parallel until it connects up, past the Greek church. But that is a big issue. And speed. In the summer, they, especially at late at night, I've seen motorcycles just go over 100 miles an hour, starting at the Cape Cod package store and heading towards out that way. So anything we could do to address that.
Thank you. Looks like we have one right there.
Just a couple of thoughts on the idea of thinking outside the box. I don't know if it's consistent with quote-unquote Patty Page's Old Cape Cod, but at some of these traffic lights, if there could be a walk up, over, and down, they have them in more heavily congested parts of the state. Route 1, for example, it may not be something that would be acceptable on the Cape. The other thing that has to be considered, you can put in all the well-lit pedestrian crosswalks you want. You can put up all the signs you want. I'm thinking of South Street near High School Road, telling drivers you must stop for pedestrians in a crosswalk. I don't know how many times there at Barnstable High School, my spouse and I have almost been eliminated by drivers who ignore that and who are speeding. It needs to be said in light of the comment about motorcycles. One, there's a state law that bans motorcycles making excessive noise. the local police haven't in the past 30 years ever stopped such a cycle. Two, the local police, to my knowledge, have never, ever stopped someone who was almost playing the game of let's hit the pedestrian. I don't know how many points you get for an older or younger or a male or female pedestrian, but I think something needs to be said. A fire needs to be lit under the extremely capable, friendly, competent Barnstable Police Department, asking them to pay a little more attention to enforcing existing laws and making all of us, I'll be the next offender tomorrow probably, drive more safely and be more cognizant of the rules of the road. At present, it's not being enforced in the smallest way.
Thank you very much. Any other issues? I see one over here.
I think growth management has tried to do this, but I'd like to see, with every new business and some of the old businesses, emphasis on planting appropriate landscaping and trees so that we don't have any more buildings going up with two scrimey little bushes and it gets away as pleasantly landscaping. That would be labor intensive, and I realize there'd be various types of landscaping for different businesses, but I would like to see an emphasis on all of the structures along this corridor, well landscaped, especially with small trees.
Thank you. And I think we've kind of naturally moved on to the last topic here. Anything you'd like to see changed? So any other thoughts that people have, things they'd like to see changed in this area? Okay. Bell Tower Mall, looking for a roundabout or a light at that location? Yes. Okay, I think we'll start on the end here, and then we'll get over to the other comments.
Well, this is still about the roadway, because the volume increase for the size of the road has been such that anything that significantly improves flow is likely to be quickly overwhelmed by an increase in usage, because there aren't very many alternative east-west routes from 6 all the way down to 28. And it's a little outside of the scope of this, but anything that would allow easier cross-transit to take flow off of 28. Lots of the businesses want maximum flow for customers, but you don't need all the flow that is going to Dartmouth or headed down to Mashpee. Anything that would provide alternative routes in the east-west direction or better north-south access to get up and use 6 would make a real contribution, I think, to a lot of the density problem for traffic. Take this away from you before I leave.
Great comment, thank you. Next comment.
Yeah, that is an interesting comment. Like, in Mashpee, at the Mashpee Rotary, they've signed it so that there are alternate routes to get to different places, so that not everybody is going to the Rotary. However, here a lot of that would be through residential areas. So that's we talked about a light, a roundabout. We talked about 2 roundabouts. I would love to see somebody look at 3 lanes with 2 lanes with a turning lane along there. And then, of course, we talked about somehow connecting the 2 malls. Yeah.
Corridor behind the malls,
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Is
she all set?
Where was the second roundabout? One was at Bell Tower? We didn't say. Oh, you didn't say, okay. 2 somewhere. Okay, okay.
Good evening. My name is Marcel Poyant. I'm the owner of the Centerville Shopping Center, the very controversial property over the many, many years. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to these comments that I've heard for probably 30, 35 years. The only thing is nothing ever gets done. In the spirit of cooperation, I think you should realize that changes in Route 28 also come with changes in zoning. And I've been trying to change the zoning along that area since 1985. You might be interested in knowing that the only permitted use along Route 28 is banks and offices, not retail. However, you've already mentioned that this is an area that provides services. All those services are permitted by grandfathering, not by zoning. Okay? People talk about a cross-through between Bell Tower and the Centerville Shopping Center. That is not possible. This area was not designed for that. I've heard this so many times, I'm sick of it. However, in the spirit of cooperation, we worked with Tom Mullen 10 years ago, and we came up with a plan for a bypass road behind Bell Tower and the Centerville Shopping Center. Mr. Mullen and the DPW formulated a plan. It's sitting in my file. It's been there for 10 years. Nothing ever happened. Okay? One of the ladies mentioned beautification. We tried to work with the town on beautification of the Centerville Shopping Center. That's one of the points that's in the zoning change. But there's no zoning change. As I said, I've been trying to get zoning change since 1985. More specifically, in the last 6 or 7 years, I was told when they were doing the change in the Craigville Beach area and down in the historic area of the Centerville, that we would be third on the agenda for a zoning change along Route 28. I haven't heard from growth management for a year and a half or 2 years. We came up with a proposal for zoning change. Nothing ever happened to it. A lot of these things, another item that's been mentioned, no left turns, okay? That's an item that deals with zoning change. So I don't mean to belabor the issue, but I think you folks have a right to criticize what's happened. If you look at the origin of Bell Tower, you know, the question is, was that permit that was issued for Bell Tower ever legal? But it's there, okay? If you look at the rear of Bell Tower and you look at all of the septic systems in the rear, which was supposed to be a conservation area, it's certainly not a conservation area, it's a marginal line. There are a lot of things I could say to you this evening, but in the spirit of cooperation, and I just turned 71, I've been trying for years and years to try to get these zoning changes, been trying to cooperate with the town, but it seems that the only time that these issues come up is when somebody's running for politics. So apparently they're trying to make some improvements along Route 28. As one of the property owners and one of the major property owners, I'm willing to cooperate with the town, but the town has to cooperate with the property owners too.
Well, I think we'll try to work that through the process. Do you have any constructive ideas in terms of moving this project forward?
Yes, I'm talking about communicating.
Okay.
It can't just be one way, okay? You're talking about one part of the puzzle. See, you're shutting me off now, and I'm trying to talk to you in an intelligent manner, okay? In other words, this is always what I get. Don't do what you want to do what we want you to do. And I'm saying to you that there has to be a spirit of cooperation with Joanne from Growth Management, with you folks from the Cape Cod Commission, and with the town. And therefore, as I'm saying to Mr. Cannon, okay, that I am hopeful that we can all work together and make some improvements in this area. But the general public does not hear these things, okay? They only hear one side. And I hope that the Cape Cod Commission's attempt to improve this will take in the property owners so that the property owners can make constructive criticism, and you will get both sides of the picture, not just one side of the picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. We'll certainly make sure that we bring in the property owners and try to have a spirit of cooperation throughout the process. That is really one of the goals of this project. So no matter what has happened in the past, we certainly want to try to move forward in a cooperative manner and want to hear all comments moving forward. So anyone else have any thoughts on things that could be changed in this area, on this roadway to improve? Yes, this is a state-owned roadway, and the state is part of this conversation throughout the process. It is the state's right of way, so this would be a cooperation with the state.
And how cooperative will they be with our concerns, you think?
Mass DOT has been very cooperative with some of the concerns along this area. They heard very loud and clear about some of the concerns the residents had about the segment of 28 from Bierce's Way to the Cape Cod Mall. They extended their project, made a lot of changes to what they're originally envisioning. So I would say that they've been very cooperative in these sort of projects, and they've been a partner throughout this project, and they will continue to be. So I look forward to a good process with them.
The problem with Centerville, which is a very convenient place to live, and I live there, is that we have one of the top CVS's in the southeast. We have one of the top mobile gas stations producing in that corner. And we have one of the poorest roadways servicing those deals. So that's a real problem. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes and young families that live off of Old Stage Road. More than you see, than you can imagine. And they need to have better access and better usage of these roads. So that's what I'm hoping will come out of this.
So better access and usage, that sounds like a good comment. Any other comments in terms of potential improvements along this roadway?
Just like to endorse Mr. Poyant's concept of a road running behind Bell Tower and behind the Centerville Shopping Plaza. That would do a significant amount, it seems, to mitigate both the risk of accidents and the occurrence of accidents and traffic on 28 for people who want to shop in those two areas. If the state does, and it may on occasion, pose roadblocks or objections to certain maneuvers that you want to make, I would hope that by going 30 or 40 yards off the road, that you'd be out of state control and could, if it seemed feasible, take the step of making that common roadway, which would enable folks to get to both of those areas without running the risk of accidents and excess traffic on 28.
Thank you for your comment. I think we have one more on this side over here.
Some time ago, years ago, we talked about the Route 28 corridor all the way from the Mashpee line all the way to the Yarmouth line. And it's sort of been addressed from Lumber Mill Road to Katuitt. And some lights were put in a couple of years ago. But now we're talking about from Old Stage Road to Bursa's Way. And we leave out, what about the Lumber Mill Road? What about that section of road, Lumber Mill Road to Old Stage, which has its own issues? You know, it goes from multiple lanes down to one lane in each direction. Same issues with regard to left-hand turns, how dangerous that road is. I'm concerned about that. We have talked in the past a number of times to help out Mr. Poyant about changing that zoning because it makes sense. It makes for improved use of both of those malls with better access. And one of the things I'm thinking about is as we increase the ability of traffic to flow on Route 28, we have to be mindful of how do you keep everybody from going 100 miles an hour. So I'm still concerned about, and I know they sort of go hand in hand, is the traffic flow and the traffic speed.
Thank you. Any last comments here? Looks like we have one in the middle.
I know we talked about pedestrian usage and a sidewalk on the north side of the road. It always seems to me that there are people that walk in the road instead of walking on the bicycle pedestrian path. And I don't know how you make bicycle and pedestrian paths more user-friendly and get people to do that. But maybe somebody's done it.
Certainly a great comment. I think we're going to try to wrap this up to get you guys out of here. Any last-minute comments before we close? Great, and certainly we'll have many other opportunities for you to voice your opinions. I will let you know the next steps in this project coming up. So we're going to take all this great input that we've got from this process and boil it down, get to some of the consensus from this group and some of the great concerns and some of the great ideas that we've heard in this process. And we're going to boil this down into the next set of focused listening sessions. So these will be scheduled in the last week of April. If you've signed up on the email list or with any of the corridors, we'll make sure you're aware. And we'll also publicize it as we did with this meeting, getting out in flyers, getting it out into the media as best we can. And what we'll do in that section is to break it down more specifically into each of those three segments so that we'll be able to sit down at the table and dig into the details a little more on what are the issues and what could be done on those corridors. So we'll take all this together, we'll put some information together, and we'll have a more focused discussion at that point. So I hope to see many of your faces there at that meeting. If you have neighbors or other businesses in the area that would love to come, it'd be a great time to get them involved as well. So we'll certainly send out a reminder when we get close to that and we set a date and a time for those meetings. Again, it will be the last week of April. And then after that, we will start the development of potential alternatives along this corridor. We'll develop the concepts, refine them, go through technical reviews, and eventually come out with some recommendations. It's a long process, and we'll have public meetings throughout the process to make sure we gauge any input from the community, and then come up with a final report by the end of September to close out this initiative, but certainly not close out our involvement in the process. We just completed a similar process on Route 28 in Yarmouth, and then we were able to focus them in on the most important intersection and move that forward for the process for funding. So that's what we like to do with this process, not end it in September, but really use this as the start for a real improvement in the area. So we certainly thank you for your involvement so far. All of the project materials, everything that's shared here and everything that's going forward will be available on the Commission's website, right on the projects page. So you can find anything there. If you have any questions or comment throughout the process, there's my phone number, there's my email. You can stop by. I'd be happy to hear from any of you and any of your questions or concerns along the process. So with that, I'd like to close this meeting and thank again Mass DOT for their partnership in this, as well as the town of Barnstable, and certainly thank everyone here for participating and look forward to a continued participation throughout the process. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day.